Mike thought it was just another peaceful Saturday, until a call from his best friend shattered everything. His wife wasn't at her friend's pool like she claimed. She was at a nude beach, with two men. What Mike did next wasn't violent or illegal, but it changed everything. Mike Thompson's Saturday started like any other. The Florida sun filtered through the blinds of his apartment in North Miami as he sipped on his black coffee and flipped through TV channels. He was 36, settled, dependable, and married for nearly a decade to Ashley, someone he once believed he knew inside out. That morning, Ashley had kissed him on the forehead and told him she'd be spending the day at her friend Lisa's place. "Just some girl time by the pool," she'd said casually before heading out. There was nothing strange about it until Mike's phone buzzed a little after noon. The name on the screen, Jake Foster. Mike raised an eyebrow. Jake never called without a reason. If it was something casual, he'd text. Always. The sudden call stirred something uneasy in Mike's gut. Still, he answered. "Yo," Mike said, leaning back on the couch. Jake's voice on the other end wasn't his usual upbeat self. "Hey, man, you got a sec?" Mike sat up. "Yeah, what's going on?" There was a pause, then, "I'm at Hallover Beach." Mike blinked. "The nude beach?" "Yeah," Jake replied, then hesitated again. "Look, your wife is here." The words didn't land immediately. Mike frowned, trying to process what he just heard. "Ashley? Here?" "No, she's at Lisa's. I wouldn't have called if I wasn't sure. I saw her from a distance first, thought, no way. But I got closer. It's her, Mike." Mike's heart thumped. "Is she alone?" "No," Jake said. "She's with two guys, lying out, laughing, talking, real cozy." Mike went quiet, his breath caught in his throat, his mind scrambling for explanations. Ashley had told him one story this morning, but this wasn't some innocent misunderstanding. This was something else entirely. "Are you sure?" he asked, but the words were hollow. He already knew Jake wouldn't make something like this up. "I'm looking right at her, man." Mike didn't say goodbye. He grabbed his car keys and headed out the door. The drive felt endless. Traffic lights dragged on. The city that normally felt familiar now seemed foreign, almost mocking. At every stop, Mike's hands gripped the wheel tighter. His mind replayed the morning on loop. Ashley smiling, her easy tone, her lie. By the time he pulled into the parking lot, his stomach was twisted in knots. The beach was crowded. It was a hot day, perfect for sunbathing, but Mike had no patience for the scenery. His eyes darted from group to group, scanning towels and umbrellas, searching for her. And then he saw her, Ashley, reclining on a towel with two men sitting beside her. One had a drink, the other was scrolling his phone. Both looked comfortable, familiar. Ashley wore sunglasses, her hair pulled back like it was just another relaxing afternoon. Mike stood still for a moment, taking it in. Everything in him screamed to turn around, but he didn't. He walked forward, step by step, until the sand pulled at his shoes and the heat of betrayal burned hotter than the sun above him. Ashley noticed him. Her body tensed. One of the men shifted uncomfortably. The other looked away. Mike stopped a few feet away. "What's going on here, Ashley?" Her mouth opened slightly, but she didn't speak right away. Then she reached for a cover-up and stood, wrapping it around herself quickly. "Mike, it's not what it looks like." He didn't respond. He didn't move. He just watched her scramble. "They're from my Spanish class. They invited me. I was curious. That's all." "You told me you were going to Lisa's." Ashley hesitated. "I knew you'd get mad." Mike let out a dry laugh. "You're right about that." She stepped closer. "Nothing happened. We're just talking. Relaxing." He looked past her at the two men. Neither looked like they were there to study languages. They both avoided his eyes, their body language shouting guilt. Ashley's tone changed, defensive now. "You're overreacting." Mike didn't shout. He didn't cause a scene, but something in him broke. She had lied, to his face, that morning, like it was nothing. He turned and walked away. "Mike, wait!" she called after him. He didn't stop. The waves kept crashing in the background. The crowd around them laughed, talked, and carried on as if nothing was happening. But for Mike, the world had tilted. His wife hadn't cheated in the physical sense. Not yet. But trust didn't always break with a kiss. Sometimes it shattered with a lie. And this lie had just changed everything. Mike didn't look back. He made it all the way to the parking lot before stopping. His chest was tight, his hands still trembling. What he just witnessed wasn't just a moment of poor judgment. It was a moment of clarity. Ashley wasn't who he thought she was. And the worst part, she didn't even seem sorry. He sat in his car for a minute, the air conditioning doing little to cool the fire inside him. Then he turned the engine off, stepped out, and walked back toward the beach. She needed to hear this, and he needed to say it. Ashley was still there, pacing in the sand, glancing around nervously. The two men had wisely vanished. She spotted Mike approaching and moved toward him fast. "Mike, please, just listen." He stopped a few feet from her. "Why did you lie to me?" Ashley's tone softened. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to lie?" He cut her off. "You woke up this morning, kissed me goodbye, and told me you were going to Lisa's." "I was going to," she said, grasping for an out. "But they invited me last minute and I don't know. I wanted to try something different." Mike shook his head. "So you ditched your friend to strip down and hang out with two random guys at a nude beach?" "They're not random," she replied quickly. "They're classmates from my night course." "And that makes it better?" Mike stepped closer. "You didn't just make a last-minute choice. You made a plan. You packed a towel. You drove out here. And the whole time, you let me believe something completely different." Ashley folded her arms, her voice rising. "Because I knew how you'd react." "There it is," he said, nodding slowly. "You knew this would hurt me. And you did it anyway." "It wasn't like that," she insisted. "I didn't cheat. I just wanted a little freedom." Mike took a breath. "If I had done the same, said I was going to the gym, but ended up at a nude beach with two women, would you be okay with that?" Ashley didn't answer. Her silence said everything. "I didn't do anything with them," she snapped, now on the defensive. "We were just talking." "Talking?" Mike said calmly. "While naked? On a beach where people go to hook up? To flirt? To cross boundaries?" She opened her mouth to respond, but again nothing came. "You didn't cross a line physically," Mike added, "but you crossed one emotionally. You knew it. That's why you lied. And now you're pretending like I'm the problem for not shrugging it off." Ashley's tone cracked. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," he said, "because you wanted something you didn't want to admit. Something you knew I wouldn't agree with. So instead of talking to me, you made the decision for both of us." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It wasn't supposed to go this far." Mike looked at her carefully. "What did you think would happen? That I'd never find out? That you'd come home and we'd have dinner like nothing happened?" "I thought it would be harmless," she whispered. "I thought it wouldn't mean anything." He stared at her. "It means everything." There was a long pause between them. Behind them, kids played by the water, people laughed under umbrellas. But none of that registered for Mike anymore. He finally spoke. "I can't trust you." Ashley looked panicked. "Mike, come on, don't say that. We can work through this." "You think this is just about today?" he asked. "It's not. It's about the fact that this isn't a mistake. It's a mindset. You think secrets are fine as long as they don't lead to cheating. You think curiosity justifies dishonesty." "It was one afternoon," she pleaded. "Please, don't blow this up." He took a step back. "It's already blown up, Ashley. You just didn't hear the explosion because you were too busy lying to me." Ashley reached out to grab his hand, but he pulled away. "You say you didn't cheat, but this broke us just the same." "I didn't sleep with anyone," she said, almost desperate now. "I swear." "I believe you," Mike replied. "But it doesn't matter." She blinked, confused. "How can it not matter?" "Because cheating isn't the only way to betray someone." Her expression faltered. Mike continued. "You crossed a line, Ashley. You decided I wasn't worth the truth. And once that happens, there's no going back." "I still love you," she said, her voice trembling. He didn't say it back. Instead, he turned once again and started walking toward the exit. This time she didn't follow. She stood there alone on the sand, the weight of what she'd done settling around her. Mike didn't know what the next steps would look like yet, but one thing was clear. The trust they'd built over years had been broken in a single morning. and nothing she could say now would glue it back together. He wasn't walking away from his wife. He was walking away from someone who chose curiosity over commitment and lied to protect it. Mike didn't remember the walk back to his car, only the sharp contrast between how the day had started and how it had unraveled. He had left his home believing his marriage was fine. Now each step reminded him that nothing would ever be the same again. He sat in the driver's seat for a while, trying to calm the storm inside him. He hadn't shouted. He hadn't caused a scene. But that didn't mean he was okay. The damage was done, and it was deeper than a public argument could ever express. Then he heard her voice again, closer this time. "Mike, please," Ashley said, slightly out of breath. She had followed him. "You have to hear me out." He didn't look at her right away. He stared straight ahead, fingers gripping the steering wheel, willing himself not to explode. "I've already heard enough," he said flatly. She stepped closer. "Can we just talk somewhere private? Not here." Mike turned to her slowly. "What more do you think you can say to fix this?" Ashley hesitated. "It was stupid. I didn't think it through. I wanted to feel free for a day." He raised an eyebrow. "Free from what? Me? Our marriage?" "No," she said quickly. "Not you. Just life, routine, everything. It's been stressful, and I felt trapped." "So your solution was to lie and head off to a beach where people strip down and flirt with strangers?" he asked. "It wasn't about flirting," she snapped, growing defensive again. "I didn't touch anyone. I didn't cheat." "But you lied," he replied. "And that's worse in some ways because it means you didn't trust me enough to be honest." Ashley looked down. "I thought if I told you, you'd get mad and say no." Mike nodded slowly. "And you're right. I would have said no. But at least then, you wouldn't have been hiding." She looked up at him, a trace of frustration creeping in. "You act like I committed a crime." "No," he said calmly, "but you committed a betrayal. You made a choice that involved me, our marriage, and you made it alone." Ashley crossed her arms. "So what? You're just going to throw away everything over a day at the beach?" He stepped out of the car, facing her. "Stop saying it was just a beach. Stop minimizing what you did. You planned this. You packed for it. You made up a lie to cover it. You didn't accidentally end up there." She tried again, softer this time. "Mike, I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," he said without flinching. "And instead of owning it, you're trying to convince me it wasn't that bad." She looked away, her confidence breaking. "I don't know what else to say." Mike took a deep breath. "Say this. If the roles were reversed, and I was the one lying about where I was, showing up at a nude beach with 2 women, would you be okay with it?" Silence. She didn't answer. Again. "Exactly," he said. "You wouldn't accept it, and yet you expect me to." Ashley tried to gather herself. "I just wanted something different. I never expected to be caught. It was supposed to be harmless." "But that's the problem," Mike said. "You were more worried about getting caught than about what it meant to lie to me." She stepped back, suddenly unsure. "So what now?" Mike didn't answer immediately. He looked past her, into the distance, where families and couples walked the beach like it was just another weekend. But for him, time had split. There was a before, and now there was this. "I can't go home with you," he said finally. Her voice cracked. "You're leaving me?" "I don't know what I'm doing yet," he admitted. "But I know I need space, because right now I don't trust you. And without trust, we have nothing." Ashley's eyes welled up. "So you're giving up?" "No," he said. "I gave everything to this. You're the one who gambled it away." She opened her mouth again, but the fight in her had faded. There was nothing left to say. Mike got in the car, closed the door, and started the engine. This time she didn't try to stop him. She stood there watching as he drove off, not with anger, not with spite, but with the finality of someone who had reached their limit. Inside, Mike wasn't celebrating a victory. He wasn't feeling stronger or more righteous. He felt like someone who had lost something he once believed was unshakable. But under that pain, something else was forming. Clarity. Ashley hadn't just lied about one afternoon. She had made a choice that revealed something much larger. That her curiosity, her need for excitement, came before honesty. And now Mike had made a choice of his own. He was done tolerating lies, done accepting half-truths masked as innocent fun. Whatever came next, it would start without her. The apartment was quiet when Mike returned. The same furniture stood in its place. The framed pictures still hung on the walls. But the sense of normalcy was gone. Everything now felt like a replica of a life that had already ended. He just hadn't signed the paperwork yet. He moved around in silence, trying to gather his thoughts. There were no shouting matches, no slammed doors. Just the kind of stillness that comes when something breaks without making a sound. Ashley didn't come home that night, and Mike didn't call. The next morning, she walked in like she didn't know how to act. Her eyes were tired, her steps slow. She stood in the living room as if waiting for permission to speak. "Mike," she began, "can we talk?" He nodded once but said nothing. "I know you're hurt. I know I messed up," she said, "but I didn't cheat on you. I didn't kiss anyone. I didn't touch anyone." He looked at her for a long moment. "It's not about what you did with them, Ashley. It's about what you did to us." She seemed confused. "I don't understand." He stood. "Let me break it down. You lied. You hid what you were doing because you knew I wouldn't approve. You took our marriage and made a solo decision that risked everything we built. And now you want credit because you didn't take it a step further?" Her face tightened. "So that's it? One mistake and you're done?" Mike shook his head. "You still don't get it. This wasn't just a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. This was a decision. You made it willingly, knowing the risk." She dropped into a chair. "So what now? You want a divorce?" "I don't want anything," he replied. "But I know I can't stay in a marriage where I have to wonder what else you're hiding." Ashley leaned forward. "It was one day. One lie." "And if Jake hadn't been there?" Mike asked. "Would you have told me? Ever?" She didn't answer. "That's what I thought." In the days that followed, things moved fast. Mike contacted a lawyer. He didn't drag it out, didn't try to punish her. He just wanted closure. The trust was gone, and no amount of apologies could rebuild what she had torn down in a single afternoon. Ashley asked if they could go to counseling. He declined. She texted him once late at night. "I miss you. I wish I could take it back." He read the message and deleted it without replying. People close to them were shocked. Friends asked what happened. Mike didn't offer details. He simply said, "We wanted different things." It wasn't a lie. It just wasn't the whole truth. Ashley signed the divorce papers without a fight. Maybe she realized there was nothing left to argue for. Maybe she knew Mike had already left emotionally the moment he walked away on that beach. What surprised him most wasn't how quickly the divorce process moved. It was how calm he felt afterward. There were still moments of sadness. Yes. And questions. What if he had caught it earlier? What if they'd communicated better? But none of those thoughts changed the fact that Ashley had made a choice, and choices had consequences. The home became quieter. The silence at first was heavy, unfamiliar. But with time, it stopped feeling like loneliness and started to feel like clarity. Mike found new routines, early morning jogs, weekend drives to places he hadn't visited in years. He started reading again. At first, it was just to pass the time, but eventually it became something more, a way to reconnect with parts of himself he'd forgotten. He didn't hate Ashley. He didn't wish her harm. He just no longer saw her as someone who belonged in his future. What she called just a beach day had turned into the final page of a long chapter, and now he was writing a new one built on self-respect, honesty, and peace. It took a few weeks before the weight started to lift. Not all at once, not in a cinematic moment of revelation, but gradually, like waking up from a long, uneasy sleep. Mike no longer checked his phone expecting Ashley's name to appear. He didn't walk past familiar restaurants thinking about what they used to order. Those things still came to mind, but they didn't carry the same sting. They were just memories, reminders of a version of himself that no longer existed. He started doing things differently. He ate breakfast on the balcony instead of in front of the TV. He stopped skipping his Saturday runs. He said yes when coworkers invited him out, something he'd often declined in the past, always opting to go home to Ashley. That instinct was gone now. Ashley reached out once more. An email this time. It was long. She wrote about regret, about realizing too late what she had done. She said she'd never truly appreciated the life they had until she watched it fall apart. She called it the worst mistake of her life. Mike read every word. Then he archived the message without responding. It wasn't cruelty. It was closure. By now, he understood that her words, no matter how sincere, wouldn't erase her actions. She hadn't betrayed him because she didn't love him. She betrayed him because she prioritized her impulse over his trust. And that was the truth she still struggled to accept. One evening, Mike met with Jake for dinner. It was the first time they'd talked in person since that day at the beach. "I hated being the one to tell you," Jake said, "but I couldn't just walk away." "You did the right thing," Mike replied. "You didn't betray me. She did." Jake nodded. "You holding up?" "I'm okay," Mike said, and for the first time he meant it. That night, Mike sat outside as the sun dipped below the skyline. He thought about everything he'd learned in the past month. Not just about Ashley, but about himself. How quickly trust can collapse. How silence can be louder than yelling. And how choosing self-respect sometimes means walking away from people you still care about. He'd loved Ashley deeply, but love, he now understood, wasn't enough to sustain a relationship on its own. It required honesty, respect, a shared understanding of what loyalty actually meant. She had chosen secrecy, and in doing so, she had chosen distance. Mike's response, leaving, wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was the only way to protect what little of himself he had left after that betrayal. Some friends called it extreme. It wasn't cheating, they said. People make worse mistakes and stay together. Maybe that was true, but Mike wasn't interested in surviving a relationship at the cost of his dignity. He wanted more than forgiveness for the sake of convenience. He wanted partnership built on trust that didn't have to be earned back. In the months that followed, Mike began to feel something unexpected. Peace. Not the kind that comes from forgetting, but the kind that comes from accepting. He had done everything he could. He had loved with full trust. He had believed in the future they were building. And when that future was compromised, he walked away. Not because he stopped caring, but because he started caring about himself just a little more. One morning he took a drive along the coast. He pulled over near a beach. Not haul over, a different one. Quieter, less history. He stood near the shore, watching the waves. He wasn't thinking about Ashley anymore. He wasn't replaying what she'd done or what she'd said. He was just standing there, breathing in the salt air, feeling steady for the first time in a long while. This wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was his now, and that was enough.